Today, shop till you drop or not this Christmas. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics from this post covering finance and property news. Well, Boxing Day highlighted the weird financial pressures lurking across Australia at the moment as shoppers flooded stores to make the most of Boxing Day bargains. More and more shoppers were holding out for a bargain during the festive season as cost of living pressures continue to weigh households down. Perhaps it's really because of cost of living challenges that we saw shoppers out in force today. Bargain hunting is a national sport, it seems, said Australian Retailers Association Chief Industry Affairs Officer Fleur Brown. Shoppers saved up all year for events such as Boxing Day sales. In fact, Australians are projected to spend $1.3 billion on Boxing Day this year and a further $2.4 billion during the last days of December, according to Australian Retailing Association Roy Morgan Research. There is an expected 2.7% spend boost compared with the same time last year. And for the 6 days following Christmas, it's expected shoppers will spend a whopping $3.7 billion across that period. Many, though, cannot afford to spend without getting further into debt, risking more financial pain down the road in the current higher for longer interest rate environment. And frankly, there are scams everywhere, so it's better to be cautious. The draw of bricks and mortar stores was tangible, with crowds flocking to the major malls across the country, which were open on the 26th of December. Crowds were absolutely pumping at the nation's biggest retail mall at Chadstone in Melbourne's east. Retailers Association spokesman Alexandra O'Keefe said, "Really positive signs, really busy out there, and just a very encouraging Boxing Day sales period," she said. Spin, spin, spin. With Christmas gifts in the rearview mirror, Boxing Day sales gave customers a chance to splurge on themselves. So items for the home and garden, but also those personally luxury items like beauty, tech, and digital are going to be very popular, Ms. Keefe said. In fact, shoppers are expected to spend around $378 million on household goods, followed by food at $296 million and clothing, footwear and accessories at $197 million. Boxing Day sales are a time when shoppers generally do spend money on themselves, with food, household goods, clothes and footwear expected to make up the bulk of purchases. Pak Thalakon, an associate professor at the University of Southern Australia, said that the continued growth in spending does represent a slow return to normal. We're definitely seeing that trend of customer spending. It's recovering compared to the COVID period. People have some more money to spend and they know what to expect compared to a few years ago. The end of year sales period, though, has become increasingly important for retailers, with Black Friday and Cyber Monday shopping contributing ever larger shares of revenue. Around 1 million customers, though, are expected to pass through David Jones' website and stores alone over the Christmas period. However, while it was once the major shopping event of the year, Boxing Day sales are indeed losing their position against an important rival like Halloween. The Black Friday sales, which fall on the last week of November, have become ingrained in Australia in recent years, and it now rivals Boxing Day. This year, spending over the Black Friday sales period was up by 4% on last year's, that's $8.7 billion figures, according to the NAB. Data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics shows that retail spending was actually higher in November than December last year. Consumer advocacy group Choice, though, warned that those entering the Boxing Day fray should do their homework first. Director of Campaigns Rosie Thomas said it pays to be critical of discount claims and to arrive with a list of products that you're looking for. Just because something is on discount doesn't mean it's the best deal around. It's a good idea to look at the prices online at other stores. Ms. Thomas said that the most popular products at this time of year were televisions, air fryers, stick vacuum cleaners, and robot vacuum cleaners. For all of those, There are potentially some great deals, but make sure that you are genuinely getting a deal and not getting caught up in the Boxing Day hype. And Thomas also warned consumers to avoid a dud deal. Often, these are things that have performed very poorly in our testing, and it's important to remember that price is not always a good indicator of quality. It's possible that consumers are not saving as much as they think they are. That's why it's so important to do your research, compare prices online, and make sure that the prices that you are paying really do represent good value. But while increased sales encourages retailers, the spending spree sparked warnings for the environment. Australians wasted more than $1 billion buying Christmas gifts this year that won't be any use, according to the Australia Institute. It was a survey of more than 1,000 Australians that it revealed that half did not think about how the gifts they bought for others would be disposed of, while 52% would have preferred it if others had not bought them a gift at all. Australia's rubbish bins are full of unnecessary extra waste this Boxing Day, said Nina Gorb, director of the think tank's Circular Economy and Waste Programme. Embracing the principles of a circular economy over the linear make, take, waste model could help bring a deeper meaning to Christmas. Research from online e-commerce giant eBay predicts that Australians could make almost $1 billion from selling unwanted gifts this festive season as well. The research did not specify whether this figure was before or after seller fees. Not every gift sparks joy for the recipient, but that doesn't mean it can't bring happiness to someone else, said eBay's Australia Zanny Abbott. But with more Australians buying online, the Australian Banking Association has warned that bargain hunters should be watching out for scams. Social media is giving scammers the tools that they need to trick Australians into parting with their money. And whilst Australian banks are taking measures to protect consumers, which includes actively blocking transfers to known scams, the truth is we all love a bargain. But it's important that shoppers don't end up getting more than they bargained for, Association Chief Executive Anna Bligh said. They will use every trick in the book to deceive shoppers, including using dodgy websites, imitating legitimate brands, through to fake parcel notifications sent via SMS. Now, in fact, an ABC News Verify investigation, which frankly wasn't widely covered but should have been, uncovered that dozens of online clothing stores were pretending to be high-end Australian fashion boutiques. Customers are sometimes shipped cheap, low-quality goods made in Asia, and sometimes nothing at all. Their investigation focused on stores that had an implied or an explicit physical presence in Australia, ranging from stores using Australian locations in their names to drop shipping stores creating digital images of fake physical shop fronts in Australian locations. For example, Vogue Melbourne is one of the more than 50 shopping sites that ABC News Verify tracked over several months that appears to be falsely representing themselves online as a high-end Australian retailer. Almost exclusively run from overseas, the websites are mass-produced digital stores, sometimes selling cheap and often poor-quality products imported directly from Asia. They have a strong and seemingly unchecked presence on Meta's social media platform, Facebook and Instagram. Despite having names like Sydney Stylista, Beaumont Gold Coast, and Perth Apparel, Facebook transparency information often shows those pages have several administrators but outside of Australia. The ABC says that social media giant Meta allows these pages to run ads on its platforms that target Australians and funnel them to their websites. Many of the ads use similar language and sometimes the same images that tug at the heartstrings of shoppers, with talks of closing down sales and shop fires. While there's nothing illegal about shipping goods from other countries, customers are often being tricked into thinking they're shopping locally. They're left with little practical recourse for international returns or exchanges, and often hundreds of dollars out of pocket. Now, Meta didn't respond directly to detailed questions from the ABC News Verify by the time that they published, but did confirm they were looking into the flag pages. We are investigating this matter. Meta doesn't want scams on our platform, and we are continuing to invest in tools and technology to prevent them. The safety of our users is of utmost importance, and we continue to work with industry, the government, and law enforcement agencies to protect Australians from scams. The 57 online stores that ABC News Verify tracked are managed and run by different people and groups, but all have a very similar look online. In fact, the websites appear to have been designed and created using common templates from the e-commerce platform Shopify. They then advertise heavily on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and the products they sell are mostly mass-produced, fast fashion items commonly produced in Asia. The sites all use a legal supply chain model called drop shipping. The product you receive has often been shipped from an entirely different country without any direct handling from the seller. Normally, when you make a purchase on a website, it's the retailer who ships the product directly to you. But with drop shipping, the retailer places an order with a supplier who are located in a completely different country. That supplier then ships the item directly to you without the involvement of the retailer who you placed the order with. So what happens when you want to make a return or exchange? Well, some of those drop shipping websites offer them for free, but you can't just return your item to the online store that you bought them from. Buried in the returns policy fine print of many of these stores was a clause which states returns are shipped back to a central warehouse in Asia. That's the original supplier. And while the buyer could possibly get their money back, what they're often surprised to learn, often buried in the fine print, is they have to foot the international shipping bill to send the item back to the supplier. This can sometimes be close to or even equal the amount paid for the item in the first place. Now, this is difficult for consumer regulators to police, as while drop shipping is a perfectly legal business model, where this scam begins is the misleading tactics being used to deceive shoppers into thinking that they're dealing with a local business. This can leave customers feeling misled, dissatisfied, and out of pocket. Rosie Thomas, the Director of Campaigns at consumer watchdog Choice, told ABC News Verify that after thinking you've been dealing with an Australian business, the idea that you would have to pay to ship the item back overseas to return it often comes as quite a shock. Even if you return the item, if you don't get the refund or if you don't get the response that you would like, there are limited options in the digital environment as to where you can take your complaint. Katrina Lowe, the Deputy Chair of the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, told ABC Verify that all customers shopping online in Australia, even with international operators, do have rights. All businesses that trade in Australia are required to comply with the Australian consumer law, and that includes not misleading consumers about where your business is based. If consumers do feel that they've been misled by this contact, we encourage them to get in contact either with the ACCC Info Centre or with their state and territory fair trading agencies. The ACCC's Katrina Lowe said it's incredibly important that the business is not misleading consumers about the nature of their business, about what they might expect in terms of delivery times, and of course, what they are purchasing or what they can see online matches with what they ultimately get delivered. Choices Ms. Thomas said Meta needs to do much more. We think at a minimum Meta should be verifying the identities of the businesses that it's taking money from to advertise on its platforms. This would ensure that those businesses are who they say they are. In the case of scams, should pick up whether it's not an impersonation and whether there's a significant risk for consumers. Now, one of the most common deceptions that they called out were fake reviews of products. Many of the sites they looked at displayed fake unbranded testimonials, often using stock or AI-generated images, and may also include fake Trustpilot reviews too. These fake reviews often have wording that no human would ever actually use, using dated Australian slang like cobber and describing delivery as quick as a rat over a drain pipe. They appear to be crafted to seem authentic to Australians, but are actually, frankly, anything but. The lies and AI carry over to many of the ads that we see plastered across Meta's social media platforms, with claims of shops closing down, burning down, and using artificially generated store owners. And they also track shops stealing or altering photos of real Australian shopfronts. Legitimate Melbourne store Claw had no idea a photo of its very real store was being used by Wilson Melbourne on its Facebook page until ABC News Verify contacted them. And fake Sydney outlet Trendy Oz is actually a badly photoshopped photo of a Calvin Klein store in Sydney's CBD Westfield. And people can be faked too. Online store Vogue Melbourne claims falsely to be run by Gary Williams, an Australian physiotherapist, and Cecile Laurent, a talented French designer. It's confusing, at very least. Operating a business outside of Australia that drop ships goods into the country is something that is perfectly legal and thus outside the scope of regulators. Where it becomes a problem is when consumers think they're dealing with a local business and all the implications of quality and ease of dealing that come with that assumption. There's a whole industry built around creating websites. ABC News Verify has seen a range of different prices and delivery times for fully operational shopping websites offered on various platforms. The cheapest and quickest the ABC came across was a 10-product website with a 3-day delivery time for just under $50. And they saw prices in other accounts for as much as $1,000 for a 50-product store delivered in a week. Some of those sellers go on to offer to manage the marketing and operation of the page for several $100s a month. ABC News Verify also came across multiple websites that were almost identical in layout. Now, they know that websites are being operated by different people because they looked at the PayPal beneficiaries data, which was different, and their Facebook pages listed administrators in different countries. But using standard templates like Shopify makes it quite easy to scam. In fact, Shopify didn't respond to the detailed questions from ABC News Verify, but a spokesperson confirmed it was investigating the online shops flagged. Shopify's acceptable use policy clearly outlines what is not permitted on our platform. We're reviewing these stores and will take action on any found to violate our policies. Now, there are a range of companies online that allow those websites to be created with ease and at scale, meaning purveyors can drop ship to anywhere in the world with very little effort. It's clear these Australian targeted websites that they've uncovered were just the tip of an international iceberg. As shoppers waded through Black Friday sales and, of course, now on into Christmas, many might be asking how they can keep themselves safe when seeking to buy high quality and good value products online. ABC's News Verify asked experts from Choice and the ACCC for the top tips when it comes to shopping online and avoiding scams. As Thomas from Choice said, slowing down is key. Scam ads or fraudulent retail ads very likely will create a sense of urgency to try and make you act quickly. Take a moment to check the website. Check the URL. See if there are any red flags that suggest that it may be that this business is not what you think it is. It's worth mentioning, by the way, that none of the URLs that the ABC looked at were carrying a .au Australian domain, though its presence in the URL doesn't necessarily mean that your site isn't a scam. Katrina Lowe from the ACCC agrees that doing a bit of homework can save heartache later on. Being skeptical of reviews posted directly on the website is a good start. Be aware of websites that you're not familiar with, including if you might have received adverts about them on social media, she said. A really good thing to do is to check online forums and review sites because often you might find other consumers will be talking about them. And then the last tip that we give to people is if you are feeling a bit cautious, you might wish to shop with a credit or debit card. That means that if something goes wrong, you may have the right to do what's called a chargeback. And that means actually reversing the transaction with your financial institution rather than the particular business that you might have given those details to. In fact, ABC News Verify spent months documenting and investigating overseas dropship operations that falsely claimed to have a physical presence in Australia. And they investigated who was behind them, unearthing various links across the globe, including ties to countries such as the Netherlands, the UAE, China, and the US. And although ABC News Verify did uncover the identity of several overseas individual businesses linked to some stores, most did remain opaque, due in part to measures by the operators to mask their ownership, and because of the transparency limitations of the Australian version of Meta's ad library. Although Meta has greater transparency on digital ads than some other digital platforms, the company's ad transparency in Australia is limited compared to some jurisdictions, for example, like the EU. In fact, Meta in the EU is subject to the European Union Digital Services Act, which, once introduced, compelled Meta to display and archive all ads that targeted people in the EU and store them for a year. Detecting scammers and others abusing Meta's platform in Australia remains a whack-a-mole exercise, therefore, one exacerbated by Meta's closure of the transparency tool called CrowdTangle earlier this year. So all up, if you do spend wisely and be cautious. Bargains may not be bargains, and in the online world, you may be looking at not what you think you're looking at. It may not be true. More broadly, in the current financial environment, holding close to your wallet and spending carefully would be a good New Year resolution, even if others want you to spend and spend and spend. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.